because we don't have a common language for listening, that's where we have a problem. So I can be a good listener, you can be a good listener, but if we're doing that in different ways, it's like I'm playing Monopoly, you're playing Clue. We're not playing the same game. It creates even more confusion. So but when we develop a common way to do this, then everyone gets on the same page and you solve problems the same way, you communicate the same way, and then you also get rid of all the fractures that really occur.
You're listening to Stories from the Top, an inside guide to better business development. So we're back with Christine Miles of The Listening Path. Christine, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
Today, we're going to dive into how listening impacts culture and drives success. To start, why don't you just give us a quick intro to who you are, what The Listening Path is, and then we'll jump right in.
Christine Miles, I'm the CEO of EQuipt, creator of The Listening Path, and The Listening Path is a teachable, repeatable, scalable way to learn the skill of listening, and not just listening, but listening so you understand.
So to jump in, we're talking about listening in the workplace. So What are some of the cultural problems that are happening through poor listening or a total lack of listening?
So I think we're having an epidemic crisis of understanding and a true listening crisis. This technology is not the root cause, but it is gasoline on an already raging fire. So between what's happening and technology is amazing. I mean, think about the comforts and what it does for us, but it also is really changing our brains. It's really changing how we interact. So it's causing even more problems from that standpoint. So the first problem is that we're not understanding each other, and now we're atrophying further in terms of how we know how to really connect, listen, understand, and change the way we solve problems in the world and in the workplace is getting harder and harder. And we're also more fractured in terms of how we're working. So it's a lot of complications.
What are some of the symptoms in like a corporate team that they may not even recognize are coming from poor listening?
Meetings. Say no more. Unless you're like, our meetings are fantastic, you have a listening problem. Because we spend a lot of time talking, and not really getting things resolved, done. And a lot of it is because we're not at the root cause. And a lot of it is not even if we're very respectful with each other, because we don't really have a way to make sure we understand, we end up with a lot of hidden chaos and a lot of hidden misunderstanding. That's the one most people can relate to, because most people hate the meetings they're sitting in. Next to that is really how people are relating to one another. And there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of disengagement, there's a lot of managers that are doing their best in a lot of cases, but their employees don't feel like they get them, or they care about them, or they value them. And it's this hidden cost throughout organizations that's everywhere.
So what is the approach then to helping people get better at listening in meetings and around the office in general?
So because we don't have a common language for listening, that's where we have a problem. So I can be a good listener, you can be a good listener, but if we're doing that in different ways, it's like, I'll use old school board games. I'm playing Monopoly, you're playing Clue. We're not playing the same game. It creates even more confusion. So but when we develop a common way to do this, then everyone gets on the same page, and you solve problems the same way, you communicate the same way, and then you also get rid of all the fractures that really occur. So the key is to create a simple process that's repeatable and a language that's scalable.
And you were mentioning about technology being part of the gasoline on the fire that's damaging and atrophying our communication skills. Which pieces of technology are you referring to? Is it the Zoom calls? Is it the social media?
Well, it connects us and disconnects us. I think one of the biggest problems is just the inordinate amount of time we're spending online a day. That's the first problem. I mean, right now, for the average adult, it's 6 hours and 40 minutes outside of work. Right? That's a lot of time.
It's like all your extra time.
Well, in theory, it should, right? But you think about all the moments and all the multitasking that's happening all in meetings, we're all guilty of it, and even just being online and being saturated. So yes, I can connect with someone who's in another state, another part of the world, and I'm also not as connected as I was before. So it brings us together and it disconnects us. I remember one time I was sitting in my office, I had my cell phone on, I was ready for the Zoom call, it was all, and we still missed each other. I'm like, how is this possible? It's almost like a little bit of a mini metaphor of what's really happening, because we may be sort of together, but we're not really as present as we used to be. So, and then
finding that true even with podcasts. Like we've done some on Zoom, we've done some in person, but it's always a different feeling when you sit down in person with her and just have that conversation. It flows more naturally, you're able to get your points across.
Yeah, and this is where, there's a lot of different theories about should people come back to the office? What about we like working remote? There's, the research before was hybrid working was the best approach before COVID, so because there is something to the human connection, but it's becoming inconvenient for us to connect in that way. For a lot of really good reasons, by the way. It's not, look, we can hire talent that we're not, geographically we're not as stuck. We can find the right person wherever they are in the world, but it doesn't mean it doesn't come with some consequence. And how it's hard enough to do this well without being taught when you're in person. You add the complexities of a Zoom call or, and that less of that feel that you get in the room. You miss a lot more. And then you have people like this on a screen, that are looking but not looking, and you're not sitting in a meeting on your computer or on your phone. That's just you wouldn't do it the same way as if you were on a Zoom call or a WebEx, yeah.
Are there different people within the organization that you think should prioritize learning and listening? Like, should management and leadership definitely be on top of that more than getting their whole team, or do you think it's the whole organization?
Well, so I'm an optimist, and I think, we know that most of star performance comes from the emotional acuity, from our emotional intelligence. And listening is an emotional intelligence skill. I believe it's actually the foundation of all emotional intelligence, self-regulation, motivation, self-management, understanding others. So it's all there, and listening, when you build that skill, the other things happen. So that's why I believe it's best for all. But from an organizational standpoint, if you want to retain employees, if you want to inspire employees, if you want to engage employees, then the managers need to go first. When you do that with the employees, and we've done this many times, when the CEO from the individual contributor learn this language together, it's a whole different ballgame. It's really exciting because we're all basically toddlers learning how to listen because we haven't been taught, we've been told.
Do you have any examples of how you've seen this transformation in listening impact the culture of the companies?
Yeah, quite a few. I have to try to pick here. I think we worked with a company that was a franchise of Trine that's since been sold for a number of years, but they trained everyone in the organization on the listening path. And the problems that we were solving with them before then were so different than what we were working on after, because the CEO was out with customers using this, the salespeople were out, they were in meetings with each other. So the level of collaboration goes up, and the level of misunderstanding go down. So it just really does break down the silos in so many ways. Yeah.
Are there any growing pains to adjusting the way you listen? Like, is there a period where things might be confusing before they get better, or is it pretty seamless?
That's a really interesting question. The growing pain is that, so I had a guy, we were with a contracting company that said, this works every time I do it when I remember to do it. I said, that's the good and bad news. So the growing pain is, it's not a natural thing when you're 40 years old and you have never done this before. You have to practice your way to success. And so I mentioned last time I was in an accident, I was down the road. I was a pretty avid athlete before then, And when I finally was able to start getting back into sports, I just was so frustrated because I couldn't hit a ball. So I went into golf, and I had a pro that actually helped me learn to swing relative to my injury. And I said, his name was Richard. I said, Richard, I don't go to the driving range to practice. He said, that's okay. And I said, what do you mean I'm supposed to practice? He said, think of it this way. In golf, when you go to the driving range and you hit 50 balls bad or incorrectly, you have to hit 100 to get back to neutral. I said, oh, so just let's focus on when you're on the course, swinging the club the right way and doing it right, maybe 100 times if I'm lucky, versus trying to get 100 balls at the driving range because it wasn't physically easy for me. That's kind of how we have to unwind so much in terms of the habits so that people can get to hitting the ball right. And that's the hardest part. That's the growing pain. It's easy to fall back to the old ways.
So if I have a business, what are some of the warning signs that to me would be a trigger that maybe I have a communication problem that I should be addressing?
I was just at a conference speaking for human resource professionals around retention and recognition, and this is statistically this is where you want to. If people are not happy, we think it's pay them more, give them more, and some of those things they matter. Don't get me wrong; people need to make a living and so forth, but people stay when they feel heard, seen, and understood, and when managers shine a light on other people in interactions, people are loyal, people stay. So if you're seeing turnover, if you're hearing, I don't like my manager, if you're hearing this company doesn't communicate well or they don't care about us, at the heart of it, at least part of the fix is you're not listening. And listening doesn't mean you can do everything that they ask you to do. There's a difference because we can't always fix what's broken for the employee. If they want a raise, they want a promotion, they want things. But just the gift of understanding alone will change a lot of things for people.
So I'm curious, do you find it difficult to sell to maybe owners of a business? Like, do people think too highly of themselves? Like, they don't have a problem with listening? Like, do you have to kind of convince them?
So, a lot of people think they're better at it than they are. In fact, 96% of people think they're good at listening. I don't. That's not my experience. I mean, all you have to ask yourself is how people are they listening to me well, and then are you really listening to to others? So the good news is everybody thinks it's important. The bad news is it's hard to solve a problem you don't know you have, and so because listening is an invisible problem, or the lack thereof can create these invisible costs. It's hard to get that to rise to the top. It's getting easier based on the world's changing so much, and we know that those emotional skills and those soft skills are what's making the difference. But it's really the hardest part is getting people's time. It's not their interest. It's will they give time and resource, real human resource, human capital, put them in the room or give them that opportunity because it is an investment, to change the way you language things, but the payoff's pretty high from a sales perspective, a retention perspective, customer service perspective. We talked earlier, people buy from you when you listen, right? That's mostly what salespeople want. Customers want is just for their person to start out by listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is the time frame to transition your listening style or adapt to a new one, say for someone who's in their 40s?
Yeah. Once you have the process, you can do it like that. It's just doing it over and over and over and over again. So it used to be harder because it was less tangible, but now we have so many mechanisms to reinforce that people can see it, feel it, touch it. We have a licensable program, we have a board game. It's very visual now. It's very easy to see where you are on the path and how to integrate the tools. So if organizations not only teach it, but then they make it part of their culture, like the Tozier company that I've talked about, we have a company in Missouri that this is integrated into their culture, then it really gets sticky fast. So it's just remembering to do it rather than to fall into the old habits. But that's true with anything, yeah.
Great. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you guys or start learning how to listen, what's the best way to do that?
They can find me at the Listening Path, find us at the Listening Path. We have, obviously lots of things on the website, but they can also reach out to us directly. And and they can find me at Christine Miles Listens if they're interested in speaking. So we do a lot of that as well.
Great. Well, we have one more episode coming up, how to tap into passion and purpose with your teams as a manager. So we'll jump into that soon. Christine, thanks again for coming on the show.
Appreciate it.
Stories from the Top is your guide to successful business development. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or find Edge of Cinema on YouTube. Stories from the Top is an Edge of Cinema production, hosted by Matthew Skura and Jeremy Schmidt. To learn more or get in touch, visit edgeofcinema.com/podcast.